Well, as you've heard, that's the new sheriff in town. That's Panyaza Lesufi. Moloko Moloto, our reporter, is outside the legislature of Gauteng. You've been following that, those developments, and earlier you had a time as well to speak to the new sheriff in town, and Panyaza Lesufi making some promises about what he will prioritize.
Oh yes, Braden, the new premier is saying that one of the things that he's going to have to deal with in this province is crime, corruption, but also lawlessness. And he's saying all the fight against these three is non-negotiable. But he's also promising that the townships and the hostels must actually get a new facelift. He's saying that he will be working towards the elimination of the informal human settlement. Of course, the Premier was elected earlier today, defeating the Democratic Alliance provincial leader, Solim Simanga, who contested him for the top position in the province of Gauteng. We have also seen the former Premier, David Makhura, making a turn at the legislature, and we have seen how members of the ANC caucus, even before the election took place, saying that they love David Makhura. And when Panyaza Lesufi, after he was elected as the premier, when he took to the podium, he did promise that he is going to continue implementing programs that were started by his predecessor, David Makhura. And we had him describing him as a humble man, and also indicating that he has learned so much from him. And the premier went on, the former premier, I must say, David Makhura, went on to congratulate the man who replaced him, even when he went into one of the offices to take an oath so that executive authority can now be fully vested in him as the new premier of Gauteng. So the premier, Panyaza Lesufi, is promising that tomorrow he's going to announce the new members of the Executive Council. He really did not want to go into detail, really, in terms of the bigger plans that as the province they will be embarking on, except just those that I have mentioned earlier. But he's saying that immediately after announcing the new members of council, they will have to go on a cabinet lekgotla so that they can discuss issues that are faced with this particular province. Let's listen to Premier Panyaza Lesufi.
As long as our townships are still the way they are, our freedom has not arrived. As long as we still have informal settlements, we have not accomplished our tasks. As long as we still have dirty and smelly hostels, we have not achieved our goals. As long as our people in rural areas struggle to get water, then our mission for a better free South Africa must continue. When young people qualified, yet they remain unemployed, we should then double our efforts for the true economic growth of our province.
Okay, finally, Moloko, one of the promises he made today is that by the close of business tomorrow, he would have finalized the appointment of the new provincial executive. Should we expect lots of changes? Because on one hand, he's promising continuity in terms of the policies of Makhura. He said they were taken as a collective. But on the other hand, he needs to inject new blood. After all, we are only 18 months away from the general national provincial elections in 2024.
Well, Braden, of course, the Constitution bestows upon the Premier to assemble or constitute the Provincial Executive Council. So the expectation is that because there's a vacancy now, the Department of Education, which he was presiding over, there's no longer MEC there now. He has now, as we know, is the new Premier. chances are that he's going to have to strike a delicate balance there, Braden, because you would recall that the ANC in Gauteng just came back from an elective conference where he was elected Panyaza Lesufi, that is, as the provincial chairperson of the ANC, defeating Lebogang Maile, who is the MEC of Koksta. So the idea here, I would suppose, is that he will have not to be magnanimous in his approach, because he would not want to be seen to be paging those people who necessarily did not support him, because as much as he is the provincial chairperson, the number of people who are in the PEC actually are people who were going with Lebogang Maile. So in terms of him having to reconstitute or constitute or assemble his provincial executive council, I suppose he is going to have to please both sides, and he will have to do this in view of the fact that in 2024, which is less than 2 years from now, the ANC will be faced with one of the toughest elections in its history in this province. So he would want to have all the members of the ANC, not only in the caucus, supporting his choices of the MECs, so that they can now marshal the forces and go into 2024 as a united force. But of course, I am sure we are going to see new faces. As I said, there is a vacancy in the education department. But lastly, Braden, we know that the Constitution actually allows the Premier to appoint members of the Provincial Executive Council, at least minimum of them should be 5. So he might as well try to do like Zamani Sol of the Northern Cape. We know he actually appointed 9 when everybody else was appointing 10 MECs, as is the limit that is provided for by the Constitution. So we don't know. He might just try to trim some of the departments, consolidate others, and appoint 5, 6, 7, or 8 or 9. It's entirely up to him as the new Premier of Gauteng Province.
We'll find out tomorrow, indeed. Thank you very much, Moloko Moloto, outside the Gauteng legislature, in downtown Johannesburg. Now, during his acceptance speech, the new